Wish it could have been a Jet, Fernando.
We'll see what happens.
Live from Radio Row in Indianapolis, it's Combine time as teams look for their next superstar. Some of the biggest names in sports and entertainment will be right here. Get ready for the 2026 draft, baby. It's the Jake Asman Show.
I am excited about our next guest. We are live inside the Indiana Convention Center, and the Athletics' Dane Brugler is sitting down with us to talk all things Jets and NFL draft. Dane, great time to get you on because the Jets making a big trade on their defensive line. Jermaine Johnson traded to the Titans. T'Vondre Sweat is who they acquire. Your thoughts on what that now means with the Jets in there with that number 2 pick?
Well, yeah, I think that's there's more of a need for pass rusher than there was about an hour ago. And, going into the draft, we thought there's a good chance we see an edge rusher at number 2. Now it feels like the chances of that happening are exponentially higher. Now we'll see how free agency plays out. I'm sure they'll make some more moves. But even, Jermaine Johnson just didn't feel like the same guy. I don't know. The last, especially come back from the injury. And so not a big shock they made this move. Adding Sweat is interesting because this is talent-wise, man. He's huge. He can move. He can really make plays versus the run. Hopefully he's just, this is a coaching staff that can keep him focused on his responsibilities, what he needs to do. Because if he stays, focused, he's got a chance to be a really good one in the league.
So we know Aaron Glenn's taking over the play calling. He's traditionally been more of a 3-4 type of coach.
Right.
Sitting there now at pick 2, it feels like the betting favorite, Arvell Reese, maybe his odds increase after this, but you know better than me. Your thoughts on that?
I mean, in my opinion, Arvell Reese is the best player in the draft. That's my opinion. That's been my opinion since September. Nothing's really changed. I just think you can do so much with him. He's a chameleon. You want him to play off the ball, he can do that. You want him to rush, he can do that. I know that whole positionless player might give some people some pause, and I understand that completely. But when you watch him at Ohio State and Matt Patricia's defense, what he was asked to do, it's not – if you're a box score scout, you're not going to love Arvell Reese. But when you watch the tape, you see him setting an edge. You see him spying. You see him doing exactly what he was asked to do at a very high level. And then when he got his opportunities to rush, when he got his opportunities to go make a play, he did it. And he's 6'4", 240 pounds. He's violent at the point of attack, so he can set an edge. Even though he looks like a linebacker, he plays like a defensive end. And so I think he'd be a great fit for what they want to be on defense.
Where would the Jets use him in year 1? I've heard people say, it's kind of like the Micah Parsons type of role early on with the Cowboys. Do you see any of the comparisons there? And specifically now, in let's say a 3-4, how would you project him going forward?
Yeah, and you don't want to make an apples to apples comparison necessarily. Micah's top 3 defender in the league. And so you don't want to put that on him. But stylistically, I think that's the style of player you're looking at here. In terms of impact, you line him up on the edge where he can play off the ball. He can play more as an edge rusher, but you don't pigeonhole him as that. You can move him around. You can have him coming from different angles. I mean, really, his effectiveness is only limited by your lack of creativity. And I think that it's 10 years ago, we probably would have looked at him, not we, but a lot of guys in the league would have looked at him as, I don't know, is he really a fit for what we want to do? And I think now there's a lot more open-minded coaches that are saying, all right, let's tweak. Instead of asking him to change what he's doing, let's tweak our scheme a little bit to make sure we're getting his strengths and putting them on full display. And so I think if you do that, the investment is worth it because of the impact he can have.
Could you see a team saying, hey, add another 10, 15 pounds, and we're just going to predominantly play you only at edge?
Sure. I think you have to, that'll be part of this process. The scouting process before the draft is just to understand, okay, does he have that room on his frame to easily add 10 pounds? I think that even though, again, he looks like a linebacker, there are plenty of snaps on film that you can point to where he has got his hand on the ground and, whether he's setting an edge, using that length, or just being disruptive off the edge, screaming around the corner. He does a lot of edge stuff. And so, but I also don't think like I said, I don't think you want to pigeonhole him as only an edge player. I think you want to be creative with him because he can be so dynamic. And that's what makes Micah Parsons such a dangerous player, is because of all the ways you can deploy him. Line him up over the A gap, play him off the ball where he's dropping. You don't know, how that's working out. So I think that is the best way to really get the most bang for your buck with him.
Let's say it's not Reese at 2. Who's the other top contender now with that spot?
I guess David Bailey. I think that makes sense. Especially if they're going edge rusher, I think David Bailey would be the next one. Just lightning off the edge. He's not the best run defender, but I tell you what, you go back and watch his 2024 film at Stanford, then you watch his 2025 film at Texas Tech, you see a big jump. So he's clearly working at it. He's clearly making strides as a run defender, and that's what you want to see. You want to see that upward trajectory. But I think in most drafts, we're not talking about David Bailey as a number 2 pick. This is a little bit of a different draft, and I think people we got to accept that.
We got the testing results from Ruben Bain. How does that now impact his draft stock?
Well, we don't have testing, right? We just have
measurements.
Yeah, and I reported his measurements a couple months ago, so I think I prepared people for this. I think he was going to have under 31 arms. He's just the reason some teams have him on the board as more of a 3 technique is because of his body type. It's not what you usually think of in a defensive end, especially a defensive end you potentially take in the top 10. Now, it doesn't mean you just don't draft him, but you have to be a little bit open-minded about how different he is. But you throw on that tape from the college football playoffs and you see him wrecking shop, and it's like, all right, yeah, we could use that power. We could use a guy that understands how to use that leverage, how to attack the striking points, and then how to finish, because he can get to the back. And it's not just as a pass rusher. He is a really good finisher in the run game, and that's something that 30 teams could use.
Where could he potentially fall now to? I mean, could he actually be there, like 16 with the Jets' extra first-round pick?
I'd be surprised. I think that there's just not definitively 15 better players in this draft.
Right.
Even though I have my concerns with Bain, and I still am hard pressed to believe he'd get past the Chiefs at 9, the Bengals at 10. I think one of those 2 spots make the most sense for him.
All right, Jets in there at pick 16.
Mm-hmm.
What's an ideal scenario based on how you could potentially see the first 15 picks going in front of them?
I think if they get really lucky and, a Caleb Downs were to fall or something like that, but just because there's so many teams that are not going to draft a safety in the top 10, top 12. But that's probably, I just think the chances are just too low. They're just, Caleb Downs is too good. Somebody's going to pull the trigger and take him. It's probably one of these receivers, right? Now, I don't think it's going to be Carnell Tate. I think he's going to go somewhere in the top 10. But Mekhi Lemon, I think there's a good chance he could be there. And there's plenty of debate about, is he a slot-only player? Because he's not the biggest. He's not going to test amazing here. He'll be fine. He'll test just fine. But he won't. It's not like he's going to run a 4.3 and really blow people away. But then you watch the tape and you're like, okay, yeah, we understand. It feels like a very small needle to thread in terms of, I think he's going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown. But okay, if say Amon-Ra St. Brown never existed, who are we comparing him to?
I've heard people say JSN, but are they different type of players?
Yeah, I'm not sure I see that. I think they're different players. Yeah, I think JSN's a little more versatile in what he can do. I get why people make that comparisons, because we're talking about JSN, not the biggest, not the fastest. He wins with route running. He wins with toughness through the catch point, just being a reliable player. So I get it from that respect. I just think JSN's a better player, and nothing against Mekhi Lemon, because I think he's really good as well. But you can throw on plenty of tapes, Notre Dame tape, where he just wasn't able to get open, or he wasn't able to make that impact. So he's a really good player. It's just he will have some limitations at the next level.
Ty Simpson, let's say he's there at 16, which could happen. If you're the Jets, would you pull the trigger?
Me personally, no, I would not. I like Ty Simpson a lot. I think that there's a lot he has not seen yet. 1-year starter, 15 starts. The last 15 years, the quarterbacks with fewer than 15 starts or fewer, it's Mitchell Trubisky, it's Dwayne Haskins, it's Anthony Richardson. And it's not really a mystery why those guys struggled. Not having that experience, there's no substitute for it. You just can't create that. So for Ty Simpson, I think he is a little more unique because he is he received a quarterback education growing up. His dad being a 20-year head coach at the FCS level, that's really a unique part of his backstory. But the way the season ended, and September looked great, October looked great, then November was tough, and it's not all his fault. Alabama fell apart offensively, but there you could tell there were parts where it felt like he was swimming a little bit, and that just comes from experience. And there's no substitute for that. So the only way to get better is to get those live reps. And so,
but then everyone says he needs to sit and learn. So how does that happen?
That's the thing, and that's why I wish he would have, just my opinion, I wish he would have taken that $6.5 million and gone to Miami for a year, or Cole Payton from North Dakota State's another guy like that in this class who has a ton of talent. And like on one hand, I want to give him credit for staying put at North Dakota State. One of the reasons he went there is because when he committed, Trey Lance was leaving. And so he's thinking he's going to get this playing time, but Cam Miller was in the mix, and Cam Miller was drafted last year. So now Cole Payton got his chance. He played really well, but 13 starts at the FCS level. There's just, he needs more reps, but I don't know how you could possibly put him out there right now. And so that's the catch-22. That's really tough about those two guys' situations.
Could Simpson fall out of round 1 in your opinion, Dane?
Sure. I mean, I think it gets really interesting when you talk about Pittsburgh and then the Rams with that second first-round pick. I think that would be an interesting fit that you cannot rule out. But I would say it's closer to a coin flip than I think people want to admit. There's just how many realistic landing spots are there for Ty Simpson in the first round? We're probably talking 3 or 4 spots, maybe, and that's just what we speculate based off of need and where we could see these teams going. So I wouldn't be surprised if he fell to the early second.
A couple quick hitters for you. So let's say he's there after night 1. Jets have pick 33 in round 2.
Yeah.
Is that an appropriate spot to take him? How would you feel if they did that?
Yeah, it's a lot more digestible at that point, I think. You feel like you're getting 2 really good players in the first round, and then you come back with a quarterback where that might be the place where it's like, yeah, let's make that dart throw. Maybe he does surprise us, and because again, that unique experience that he brings, maybe he is ready to step in, compete for the starting job, win the starting job, and then it's not going to look perfect. But I think the biggest thing they need to identify is competitive toughness. Does he have the mentality? Is he wired the right way where when things go south, because they will,
especially in New York,
it's just part of the animal. Does he have the wiring where he's going to be able to bounce back the next play and not miss a beat? I give, Jalen Hurts is not a perfect quarterback, but where I give him a lot of credit was how bad things looked at times. He was so mentally tough that he just comes back the next play, the next guy. And so you're able to make mistakes, learn from them, come back. And if you think Ty Simpson can do that, then I think you feel a lot better about drafting him at that point.
Is there any other quarterback that you think makes sense with that pick 33 or even pick 44 in the second round? Jets right now, they don't have a third round pick. They do have a fourth. And it just feels very weird that here we are, you're coming off a 3-1 season, same record as Vegas, but strength of schedule percentage points is why you're picking 2 and not 1. And Mendoza might be the only clear and obvious QB that goes for a while.
Yeah, and I think we're only going to see maybe 3 quarterbacks, maybe a fourth gets in there in the top 100 picks. It's very light at the position. I think if they can, maybe you move back from that 33 spot, pick up another third, get back in that third round. I don't think trades are going to be easy just because not a lot of teams are interested in moving around, but having that first pick in the second round, it's such a power position. When teams, they go home, they think about it, they're looking at their board, they say, oh man, I really want that guy. And so this phones start ringing that next morning. So I think that they might have opportunities to move back. If they stay put, this is a corner class that I think drops off after day 2. Into day 3, I don't love the depth. And so if they want to come away with a corner from this class, getting one second round would make sense. With, Ceesay's, he fall to that point. Colton Hood fall to 33. I really like Chris Johnson, the San Diego State corner. D'Angelo Pons is one of my favorite players in the draft.
He's like a mini Aaron Glenn, basically.
Yeah,
same style.
Right.
Player.
You got to be okay with the size. He's not getting bigger, but show me besides that, tell me what else you worry about, because that's it. He's an absolute competitor. Speed, he's a 100-meter 200-meter champion in high school. The ball skills are there, the way he's wired mentally is there. The moment he showed up at James Madison, he was a starter, freshman All-American. Goes to Indiana, same exact thing. So I would go to bat for D'Angelo Pons, especially there in the second round.
Last one for you. We're already talking about the class of quarterbacks for 2027. The Jets have the 3 first rounders, so they're kind of in a spot where the head coach needs to win more games just to be here to earn the right to take a swing in a much better QB class. your thoughts a year out, basically, on what we're looking at with that class, because I remember a year ago everyone's saying, oh, wait, this year it's going to be so much better.
Yeah.
And here we are with Mendoza, probably the only one going in round one potentially. So give us something to really grab onto with this class a year from now.
Next year's class is always going to be better, but it should be true this year. And part of that is this class is so light, and also another part is next year you look at Arch Manning. Obviously, that'll be the big name. But then you know Dante Moore, going back, he should take a step and be even better poised for the draft next year. And then we weren't talking about Jaden Daniels a year before. We weren't talking about Cam Ward as number 1 overall pick a year before. Mendoza, I thought, was a first round pick over the summer. I didn't see him as a number 1 overall pick. So I'm sure we'll have a few more guys. Whether it's Lenora Sellers or CJ Carr, the Notre Dame quarterback. Can he get there? The next year is. You can't bank on it, but it looks a lot more. You can be a lot more optimistic about the talent that should be in next year's quarterback class.
Dane, where can people find your excellent draft content?
It's all in the Athletic. Beast comes out first week of April, and so if you're interested in the draft at all, I promise you will not be disappointed having that thing by your side.
When you reveal the Beast, is there going to be another event in New York City at a pizza place? Wasn't that last year that happened?
Yeah, I mean they had a car, like an old muscle car. They were giving out copies at a pizza place. Yeah, they're doing a bunch of stuff. I have not been. I need to talk to the marketing people and figure out what they've got cooked up, but they. I'm excited because every time I talk to them, they just want to keep taking it higher and higher, and that's music to my ears.
The preeminent draft analyst, Dane Brugler from The Athletic, with us here. Dane, thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you.
He's Dane. I'm Jake. Quick break. We'll continue live from Radio Row here in Indianapolis.